And all, I'm Dr. Sukesh Sankineni, consultant in shoulder, knee, and ankle surgery, Yashoda Hospital, Secunderabad. Today, our topic for discussion would be strategies for joint preservation in knee and shoulder. As you all know, arthritis is a very common problem that we all face. We have seen some of our family members suffering from this. Basically, what is arthritis? It is nothing but inflammation of one or more joints that causes pain and stiffness. Normally, all the joints in the body have a layer of cartilage surrounding them, surrounding the bone. They also have joint fluid in that. Now, with the joint fluid and the cartilage, there is smooth lubrication in the joint, and we all do our daily activities without having much pain. Now, in this scenario called as arthritis, what happens is that the cartilage gets damaged and the joint fluid becomes less in volume. As a result, the lubrication of the joint is lost, and as a result, there is more friction between the joint surfaces. This will lead to further loss of cartilage, and eventually, you will have a bone and bone articulating on each other. This will present as pain, stiffness, and swelling, and this causes considerable reduction in your daily activities and functional outcomes. There are various causes of arthritis. The most common cause is osteoarthritis. This happens with normal age and wear and tear. And the other causes for arthritis are called secondary causes. They are rheumatoid arthritis. This is a condition, medical condition wherein all your joints get affected with inflammation and there is arthritis in the joints. There is arthritis following trauma, following infection in the joint, and as a part of a generalized disorder called as psoriasis. Now, what happens in end-stage arthritis? End-stage arthritis, there is almost bone and bone. Unfortunately, the treatment options here are limited. The only best option in an end-stage arthritis is no doubt joint replacement. The advent of joint replacement has changed the way patients with end-stage arthritis are managed. There is definitely a good functional outcomes in these patients. Patients are beginning to have a good quality of life. They're able to do most of their activities. Now, as a result of the success of this joint replacement, the numbers of joint replacement done in India and abroad have exponentially increased. Now, the question arises, is it a panacea for all problems and is it so good as it sounds? There are some limitations of the joint replacement. In fact, this recent study by Nakano and Bone et al. Have reported that approximately 20 to 40% of patients are not satisfied after getting their joints replaced. There are various causes for this, but at the end of the day, the patient is unhappy. There is considerable limitation in their daily activities after a joint replacement. And the other disadvantages of joint replacement are that there is restriction in normal range of movement. Patients cannot do high impact activities like running, jogging, jumping, and they have to be on constant watch out for infections because there is a metal inside the body. Any amount of infection in the bloodstream can lead to joint getting affected. And also due to wear and tear, there can be damage to the plastic that is there in the joint. Thus, that will lead to polyethylene wear and that will require a resurgery that is called as revision knee replacement. And studies have also shown that patients with knee replacement, they start to have weak bone around the replaced portion and a trivial fall may lead to fractures. The other major problem after a joint replacement, like we have discussed previously, is a joint infection. Now, if we can see in a normal individuals also have joint infections, but in joint replacement presents a particularly unique scenario because in a normal body, if there is an infection, when we give antibiotics, because there is blood supply, the antibiotics penetrate the bacteria and they kill them. But in case of a joint replacement, or for that matter, if there is any implant in the body, what happens is this bacteria seed on the implants. They form a covering around the implant, and this is protected from antibiotics. As a result, no amount of strong antibiotics that we give can eradicate the infection. The only option in that scenario would be to take out the infected prosthesis or implant. Now, this can result in multiple surgeries, which affects the general health of the patient. And it is also expensive, both surgery wise as well as the antibiotics. At the end of the day, if we remove the implant, that may end up with a non-functional or a stiff shunt. So the patient will end up being worse than he actually was. In extreme scenarios, we have seen cases where there was a requirement for amputation to save the life of the patient. In some cases, patients cannot tolerate these repeated surgeries and they may also end up having mortality. Now, that's the reason, again, this concept of joint preservation has come into vogue. The concept basically is prevention is better than cure, and always your native joint is better than the artificial joint. Previously, when joint replacement was not there, this concept was quite popular because we had to preserve the joint somehow. But once joint replacement has come and with predictable results, people started moving towards joint replacement surgery. But again, now with the complications of joint replacement coming into vogue, people have again reverted back to joint preservation surgery. Now, what are these joint preservation strategies? There are two different categories of joint preservation strategies. One are non-operative or more of preventive joint preservation strategies, and the other is curative or operative interventions. The non-operative joint preservation strategies include lifestyle modification to prevent the onset of arthritis, to treat inflammatory arthritis like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, and even ankylosing spondylitis at the earliest. Patients should not neglect these arthritis because they have a progressive course. So early treatment of this type of arthritis will prevent late stage arthritis. Now we have some new therapies in vogue like PRPs and stem cells. We will be discussing about them. Now, if you categorize them, then one of the first intervention that we do are non-intervention strategies, in the sense that there is no chemical involved or surgery involved. The first and foremost non-intervention strategy for joint preservation is weight loss. Now, it is universally proved that weight loss will improve the function of the joints. In fact, a study has shown that losing about 10% of your body weight improves your joint function by about 28%. The other proven strategy is exercise. The benefits are multifaceted. Patients have good functional outcomes, have good pain relief after exercise. Among these exercises, also strength training is most important. You also have some physiotherapy modalities such as acupuncture, TENS, thermal ultrasound, which help with joint preservation and pain relief. Even yoga has been reported to yield good results in patients with joint arthritis. Coming to biomechanical interventions, basically these interventions change the alignment of the joint. Studies have shown that osteoarthritis progression is linked to biomechanical failure of the knee. This is because of two things. One is laxity, that is ligament failure, and the other is deformity, that means alignment problem. If you can see here, this is a patient with arthritis of the knee, and there is malalignment of the knee. So as a result of malalignment, only one side of the joint is getting loaded. So whenever the patient walks, only this portion of the knee is loaded. The other portion is relatively free. Even though he has good cartilage, he or she may have good cartilage on the other side, it is not loaded. As a result, because of entire weight passing through this portion, there is progressive and erosion of the joint, progressive arthritis. To circumvent this problem, we have this specific type of braces called as unloading braces. The function of these unloading braces is to change the loading pattern. So after applying this brace, the loading pattern is shifted to the opposite compartment. So this will redistribute the forces. So that will, slow down the progression of arthritis, and patients will report good pain relief and outcomes. The other strategy is to put some insoles in your foot. Patients with knee arthritis walk with abnormal ankle angles. So by changing the way the foot is loaded, the joint, joint pressure is evenly distributed. As a result of that, patients will have lesser progression of arthritis. Some pharmacological managements, some are analgesics that will generally reduce pain. The other pharmacological agents that have shown to improve joint function are chondroitin sulfate. This is taken orally. Then you have other tablets such as glucosamine sulfate. This decreases pain and also decreases the progression of knee arthritis. The patient fails with oral drugs, you can also give them injectables. Steroids were used in the past, but they have shown very short-term result. As a result, we have these new drugs called as viscosupplements. Most of them contain hyaluronic acid, which is an essential component of your joint fluid. The idea behind viscosupplementation is that this injection that we give, it may mimic your normal joint lubrication, and that will allow for proper smooth function of the joints. Results have shown that these visco supplements improve joint function up to 1 year following the injectables. Then the other type of injectables that have come in the recent past and they become popular are PRP injections. What are PRP? PRP is nothing but platelet-rich plasma. This basically involves drawing some amount of blood from your body, and the blood is centrifuged, and then the supernatant fluid that is there, that is aspirated into a needle and it is given into the joint. Now, why PRP? This platelet-rich plasma contains more growth factors compared to a normal blood. So these growth factors help in healing of the joint or tissues. So by giving PRP, the idea is that the growth factors will help in healing of the affected joints. They have PRP injections have reported pain relief up to at least 1 year. Studies have also shown that repeated injections have better outcomes than a single injection. Definitely the consensus now is that giving a PRP injection during early stage of arthritis will delay the progression of arthritis. Now, stem cells, these are quite popular these days. There's a lot of advertisement going on about them, a lot of misconceptions about them. Basically, the idea behind stem cells is that these stem cells have a regeneration ability and they can differentiate into cartilage cells when they are given into the joint. They can be extracted from your bone marrow or from your adipose tissue, that is fat under your abdomen, or it can be taken from an allogenic umbilical cord. The problem with stem cells is they are more hype than they actually deliver. The existing literature shows very heterogeneous results. There are no conclusive findings. No study has shown or been able to show that they can restore the joint to normalcy. That's why there is no sufficient evidence to justify the cost. They're expensive. So there is no sufficient evidence to justify the cost and use of this therapy in daily clinical practice. So if you can see, the non-intervention, the non-operative strategies involves a lot of coordination. It involves weight loss, exercise, strength training, intra-articular agents, drugs, and biomechanical interventions. Now, once we have exhausted all these non-intervention strategies, there are two other strategies. They're both operative in nature. One among them is preventive operative strategy, and one is curative operative strategy. Now, this preventive operation involves doing operations to prevent the onset of arthritis so that the problem that is going to result in arthritis is addressed. Now, curative is for a patient who has already had arthritis, who is young. So we have some options that can help them avoid a joint replacement surgery. Now, one of the major preventive strategy that involves operation is fracture fixation. As you all know, fractures that involve the joint surfaces have to be fixed absolutely normally. Any incongruity or irregularity in the joint surface will cause erosion of the opposite articulating surface. So as a result of that, the opposite cartilage is damaged. So it cuts through the cartilage. That will lead to erosion of the cartilage. So that will lead to arthritis. So no irregularity can be tolerated, especially in fractures that involve. Also in fractures that involve long bones, especially lower limb, alignment is important. If you do any malalignment or abnormal alignment, like you can see in this knee here, that will lead to abnormal joint loading. So that will again lead to arthritis. So in this patient, you can see in this diagram, this is an abnormal loading of the joint. So we have to plan an osteotomy and fix it into normalcy so that the loading of the joint is even. The other preventive strategy is ligament repairs or reconstruction. Now, the knee has some ligaments around it that cause stability. These are rope-like structures that connect bone to bone. Now, these maintain the stability of the joint. By maintaining the stability of the joint, they decrease the chance for injury to the cartilage. Now, when a patient has a ligament injury that is not addressed and that causes instability, it has to be addressed at the earliest. Any lack or if you don't address it at the earliest, it leads to chronic instability. Now, this chronic instability will cause repeated gliding of the joint. This gliding of the joint will damage the cartilage. It can damage a structure called meniscus, which is a cushion-like structure. All of this will lead to arthritis. And Patients with more than one ligament injury, they have to be operated at any cost and stabilized, because these patients are at more risk of having arthritis than a patient with a single ligament injury. Structure that has to be repaired if found to be torn is a meniscus. Basically, meniscus is a soft tissue-like structure. It is a shock absorber in your knee joint. It unloads the knee joint. That means whatever weight is being put on the knee, it tries to dissipate it by about 70%. Meniscal tears are a silent epidemic because we do not know that the tear is there unless in late stages. The earliest symptoms that we can see following a meniscus tear is unexplained joint pain or locking of the knee in a sudden position. So the analogy of meniscus is like a truck tire. So you can see here, the weight of the truck is borne by 4 tires. Now that if meniscus is like a cartilage, these 4 tires are like the meniscus and the cartilage. The lack of a meniscus is like a truck running on only 2 tires. So the entire load is borne by those two tires. As a result, there is more stress and more tire wear. Now, this meniscus tears can be horizontal, vertical, or there is a special condition called as root tear. Now, you should address this. There are techniques that can address this meniscal tears. We have techniques for doing a repair of this meniscus. By doing a repair of the meniscus, we can restore the joint forces to normalcy. That will prevent the onset of arthritis again. Then coming to shoulders, there's a condition called as recurrent shoulder dislocation, wherein patients tend to have dislocation of the shoulder repeatedly. This is because there is a tear in a stabilizing structure inside the shoulder that is called as a labrum. So once the labrum is torn, the patients tend to have repeated episodes of dislocation, especially during sleep or when trying to reach out to objects. Now, with every episode of dislocation, there is further damage to the cartilage and bone and to the labral tissue as well. As you can see in this diagram, with every episode of dislocation, there is bone loss. So again, that bone loss will lead to easier dislocation. Again, the dislocation will lead to bone loss, and bone loss again will lead to further dislocation. So this is going to be like a circle. So you have to break it somewhere. So that is by doing a surgery called as labral repair. So by doing a labral repair, you are achieving 2 things. One is you're stabilizing the joint. Second thing, you are preventing damage to the shoulder. And the other condition in shoulder that has to be addressed and operated at the earliest is a rotator cuff tear. What is a rotator cuff? These are a group of muscles that stabilize the shoulder joint. They depress the humeral head. So they interpose between the humeral head, which is a bone ball-like structure, and the acromion, which is a flat bone. So this rotator cuff is in between these 2 bones, and it pushes the head down. As a result, there is no articulation between the humeral head and the acromion. Now, whenever there is a rotator cuff tear, the muscle tears and it retracts posteriorly. This will lead to uncovering of the humeral head, and the head translates upwards and it starts articulating with the acromion. The other problem with rotator cuff tear is patients have difficulty lifting their shoulder, so even their daily activities are affected. And in long term, this repeated rubbing of the humeral head against the acromion will lead to a condition called as rotator cuff arthropathy. So this will lead to shoulder arthritis, and the patients can only be benefited by doing a reverse shoulder arthroplasty. The problem with reverse shoulder arthroplasty is the half-life is only 5 years. So that's why you have to undergo a rotator cuff repair whenever there is a tear. That will lead to joint preservation again. Now, once the preservation strategies are exhausted, you have a patient who has arthritis. What are the options that the patients may have? One of the options that is regained popularity in recent times is a high tibial osteotomy. This is for patients, especially young patients with one compartment arthritis, and the arthritis is due to an abnormal loading. As you can see in this picture, there is loading in only one portion of the knee. As a result, the knee, the other side is normal, but this side is getting affected repeatedly. So the procedure involves changing the alignment. So by changing the alignment, the joint forces are evenly distributed, and after changing the alignment, the bone is fixed with a plate. So this unloads the arthritic compartment and loads the unaffected compartment. It definitely reduces speed of degeneration and improves the function of the knee. Patients report that they can perform nearly normal activities Patients have reported squatting. They can even run after this procedure. The other procedure that is curative is an Oates procedure. This is for young patients who present with cartilage defects. So patient present with large cartilage defects, especially in weight bearing zone, we can use this procedure. What is this procedure? Basically, in this procedure, we remove plugs of bone and cartilage from non-weight bearing zone, and we place that plug of bone in the weight bearing zone. As a result, a patient when he walks, he has normal cartilage there, so they don't have pain and they don't have disability. This is a picture of what we have done in a young patient. He presented with a locking of the knee along with a large cartilage defect. We did what you call Oates procedure on him, and he has reported good results. The recent preventive joint preservation strategy is autologous chondrocyte implantation. This is a recent technique. What it involves is we take cartilage from the patient's own joint, we culture it in the laboratory, and cartilage is grown. This cartilage is either given in the form of a liquid and which is made into a clot and it's stuck in the defect, or nowadays we have a new this thing called as scaffolds, that is they're bioscaffolds, they're like membranes. We seed these cartilage cells in these membranes, and these membranes are implanted into the defect. Over a period of time, this membrane and these cells, they grow on that membrane and they become normal cartilage. There are various generations of ACI. Among them, now the third generation is in vogue. Results have been good, and they're extremely useful in young patients because this is the only technique that can restore a normal cartilage. To conclude, prevention is the key. So exercise and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, like for all general health, is important for joint health too. So weight loss is very important. Joint exercise training, muscle strengthening is very important. And when you have injuries, get them treated by experts at the earliest. Take a proper opinion, get a proper evaluation done, and if required, get a surgery done as a preventive procedure so that you may not end up with arthritis. Also, rehabilitation after surgery is also important. You should know when to load your joint, what type of activity to do with age. That is also important. And when everything else fails and you still have arthritis, there's no need to panic. Joint replacement is not the only solution nowadays. We have joint preservation surgeries. They're doing good results. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir, for an informative session, what you've given. Now, if we can take some questions from the audience. One question is, can stem cell injections cure arthritis?
See, that's a big fad that's been advertised nowadays. Stem cells have a role in our joint preservation surgery. It's not that they don't entirely have, but the way it's advertised is wrong. Giving just stem cell injection into the joint will not help cure arthritis. There is a procedure called as BMAC, wherein for young patients with cartilage defect, we take the stem cells and we make it into a kind of clot and we stick it in the defect. It's a form of what you call a rudimentary form of chondrocyte implantation. But just injecting stem cells into the joint, it will not cure arthritis. There is no proven benefit of that.
Okay. Another question, sir. Is total knee replacement not required after high tibial osteotomy?
See, the strategies that we have discussed, they are all intended to delay or reduce the speed of onset of arthritis. Say someone lives for very long, we cannot deny aging and wear and tear. So the function of high tibial osteotomy is to prevent young patients from getting a knee replacement done at a young age. See, the half-life of knee replacement, even with the current processes, is around 10 to 15 years. So after 15 years, we are looking at revision surgeries, bone loss, and other problems. So if a patient is around, say, 40, 45 years, and he has got arthritis in one compartment, we are not ready to do a replacement in such a patient, because if you see, he may end up having revision surgery at the age of 60, which causes considerable morbidity. So by doing a high tibial osteotomy, we are giving him some 10 to 15 years. Yes, eventually if the wear and tear as part of generalized degenerative process catches up, he will have to undergo a replacement.
The next question, what is the longevity of knee replacement and shoulder replacement prosthesis?
The current processes that are in vogue, especially for knee, they have done good results. They are means they're there for 10 to 15 years. In some patients, they're there for 20 years, but that's a median value. That means about 50% of our patients reach that. We have had failures with patients even after 5 years also. So with median is around 10 to 15 years. It doesn't mean that every patient will have a joint that lasts for 15 years. Some patients last more than that. Some patients have a failure earlier also. But shoulder, unfortunately, with the reverse shoulder arthroplasty and total shoulder arthroplasty that we have, the half-life is around 5 years only. That's why we do reverse shoulder arthroplasty only in the aged patients. We don't recommend it for young patients. That's the reason patients who are young have to optimize their strategies. And if they have shoulder dislocation or rotator cuff tear, they have to get it repaired so that they don't have end up having a non-functional shoulder.
Can ACL reconstruction prevent arthritis?
See, the ACL reconstruction and arthritis is a what I call contextuous issue. There are claimants to both the things. Like studies have shown that even after getting an ACL reconstruction, there is arthritis in the patients. See, whenever there is an ACL tear, you must remember there is something called as time zero injury. So at the time of injury, whenever the patient has an ACL injury, there is also cartilage damage to the knee. That cannot be changed with any strategy that we use. Now, why do an ACL surgery to prevent arthritis? See, we have to prevent secondary chondral damage to the knee. With an ACL tear and instability, there is chance for injury to secondary structures like cartilage or your meniscus. So we are preventing that by doing an ACL surgery. But the thing you must remember is that we cannot change time zero. So time zero injury, we are not changing, but we are preventing secondary damage. And the other thing, by doing an ACL surgery, we are restoring the stability of the joint so the patient can enjoy his joint normally. Otherwise, he's always afraid of using a joint, is always afraid of instability. So to prevent that, we have to do an ACL surgery.
One last question, sir, before we end the session. How important is meniscus for joint preservation?
Meniscus is one of the most important and critical structures for joint preservation, especially in the knee. Even if a patient has an ACL tear, the immediate cause that causes arthritis is a meniscal tear. So meniscus tears are basically the silent epidemic of the century, especially as far as knee arthritis is concerned. We have quite different types of meniscal tears, like root tears also, that have been discovered recently. The function of meniscus is to unload the knee joint. It shares whatever load is transmitted to it and it dissipates the forces. So whenever there is no meniscus, these forces are transmitted directly to the cartilage. That will lead to cartilage damage and early onset of arthritis. That's why meniscus is very important.
Okay. So thank you, sir, for this informative session. It was wonderful talk. And I'm sure many of us have cleared the doubts over the session.
Thank you very much. It was nice talking to you all.